Hi all, welcome to Design Dream. Today we have Adarsh Paul, and he is an animator, and his design journey is basically very interesting because he is hopped from science to design field, and we are going to understand how he has done it and is he enjoying. So as far as I know, he is enjoying a lot. Education, he has done his BSc in science, biotechnology, and in 11th 12th also he was a science student, and then he switched to design and he came to NID, and then he opted for animation film design, and now he's working at Samsung India in Bangalore. Welcome, Adarsh.
Hey, thanks, Vishal. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, let's start from the start. You went to science because of the family pressure, or you liked it?
Uh, I actually pursued science not because of the family pressure I liked it. It's because of the lack of awareness about design education. So there was not a lot of awareness for me even to get exposure in terms of how we can pursue a career in design.
Hmm.
So that's what led me to then join a college in Chhattisgarh and pursue biotechnology. But while I was doing that, while I moved out of my hometown, uh, I kind of met people. I also kind got a lot of exposure in terms of what could be like other uh, careers, like other fields.
Hmm.
So that's how I came to know about NIFT, about NID, about other colleges who provide design education, and then I kind of made up my mind that okay, let me finish my graduation first, and then maybe I can try and switch to design. So that's how it happened.
What was your choice, like basically NIFT or NID?
I knew about NIFT when I was in 12th. I somehow got to know about it from some people. I didn't really have a lot of idea about NID, but I was not able to convince my parents that, okay, let me go and try NIFT because they wanted me to like go for a career which has like more stability. And since I didn't really have that kind of understanding, I couldn't like, convince them. So NIFT was always there in my mind because I knew that's a place where you can pursue different fields of design, fashion technology, fashion communication, and so on. But as I move forward and I got to know about NID and IDC, I was able to get visibility of the entire spectrum of design education in India. So NID became my topmost choice because I wanted to learn and pursue animation. I was always interested in to learn how these animations are created. Whenever I used to like watch cartoons or animation movies, the first thing which used to come to my mind is that how do they create it. And when I did my research, I went through the courses which this colleges offer. And ID had animation film design. Also, IDC also had a course in animation back then. But because my graduation was like a 3 years course, IDC back then had a rule that uh, peeps only with like 4 years of graduation could apply for MDes. So an ID was the place where it was fitting in for me. So I applied for an ID, and it was my like top priority. But I also appeared for NIFT. Uh, Even though I had applied for BDES in NIFT, I was actually open to do my graduation all over again because I really, really wanted to switch to design. And I had applied for MDES in an ID, and luckily I was able to crack it.
And then how did you prepare for NIFT or NID?
Uh, I mean, I started prepping actually for NIFT and NID while I was finishing up my third year in college, which was third year of graduation in biotechnology. I remember that I was just passing by a stationery lane which was there in Bhillai, and I came across this very thick book which they had in the shelf, which read that NID NIFT seed entrance preparation. Since I was like, I didn't really have a lot of guidance from people because I was not in that kind of, circle. Uh, so I bought that book just to kind of know that, okay, how do we enter, how do we prepare for these exams? And then I also started like, reaching out to some people in the internet on Facebook back then, who were students in these colleges. And I came across few people who actually helped me in terms of giving me that information I needed in terms of how do you prepare for an entrance exams like an ID or NIFT. So the overall thing which I came to know about was that these exams are like very creative. So there's no one formula, for anyone to follow and crack these exams. It's all about your creativity. It's all about your ideas and your creative thinking.
And then you pass the exam, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So I mean, the NIFT exams, the NIFT results had come earlier. Uh, I was able to score a All India rank 15. I was really happy, but my target was to actually pursue animation film design. So I was looking forward to my NID's results. Uh, so I had applied for graphic design and animation design for NID, and I was able to crack both the disciplines in the first round. So
Okay.
for the second round, I had appeared for graphic design and animation design. So when the NID results came out, I had opened the graphic design portal first, and then I put in my number, and the message kind of said that we are sorry to inform that you were not selected, and I was like really really sad for that moment. So I was like, okay, there's one more, chance. I mean, yet to check my animation results, but I kind of have lost hope, and I was like starting to wonder, okay, let's go to NIFT and pursue that. And
Hmm.
then, yeah, animation, entrance was cleared, and then I went on to pursue animation in NID Ahmedabad.
So, did you have any idea of how the things would be in NID for animation?
Uh, to be honest, not really, because before joining an ID, my focus and my conversation with the people I was talking to was more on the lines of how do we approach design entrances, because I was completely
Hmm.
new to this field, even though I was coming from my own self-taught background of art. I used to just make art. I was not really aware of what design is and what is the difference of art and design. So my
Hmm.
conversation and my exposure with talking to these people was mostly in terms of how do we crack this? How do we approach this?
Yeah.
Uh, but when I had entered, like when I joined an ID, it was a completely new space for me, uh,
Hmm.
because the kind of people I met there, coming from different walks of life, from different parts of India, with different backgrounds. Some people who had come there had a similar background, like they came from non-design background like me, while some were already from a design education background. So yeah, it was the first few months were actually not difficult, I would say, but in terms of just settling in was a little challenging. But yeah, it just happened so that the people were so nice and so welcoming, and that place is so inclusive that you just became a part of that entire system. So yeah, it was nice, but it was nothing like what I had imagined. Uh, Coming from an education system where it's a lot of blackboard teaching and lectures and writing exams and papers, and only the people who actually just kind of write bookish stuff coming on the top. I came from that kind of education system, from my school, from my graduation college. So when I had come to an ID, that system was challenged there. It was completely different. It was no blackboard teaching. It was learning from your peers. It was, learning by doing things. So yeah, it was very, very different, but I really, really enjoyed it, and that actually changed my perspective towards, design and the work I used to do back then.
So, tell us about a project that you enjoyed a lot, that maybe that you had done in
Right.
classroom or in NID days.
Yeah. So Hotli was my first stop motion short film which I had made back in college. It was my classroom project. Classroom project is an ID. In an ID is basically a project which you do before you do your final graduation project.
Okay.
So this was a stop motion film which I had dedicated to my grandmother, uh, and this was the first time where I was like putting all my learnings which I had gone through while I was at an ID, and uh, I wanted to make a short film which was very close to my heart, and also kind of wanted to tell a small story to the audience, uh,
Mm.
using a medium which I love, which is stop motion. So I'll just quickly take you through uh, some bits of it. There was a lot of brainstorming, finding what inspires you to come up with a concept and an idea to make a stop motion short film. So yeah, it started with a lot of brainstorm on paper, uh, and then my guide back then, my mentor was Ajay Tiwari for this project. So yeah, it started with a lot of concept sketches, concept notes. Uh, One makes like a lot of visuals in order to put your thoughts on paper. So these are just examples of some visuals which I had drawn back then to visualize what I'm thinking in terms
Mm.
of the show itself. This is a very interesting um, illustration where I was trying to picture the entire story from start to end. So I was like
Mm.
writing things down and making small sketches to just stitch a story, to just visualize and have some kind of structure ready.
Mm.
So I won't take you through like the very detail of it because it's very long. Uh,
Yep.
so I'll just directly jump to the execution of it. So after I had the concept ready, I made some storyboards. I also worked on what would the color palette of the film be,
Mm.
and then I made a small animatic from the storyboard which I had made. Since this was a stop motion film, I also had to figure out, okay, what kind of materials I will use in terms of bringing the texture, what kind of lighting the shots will have. So all
Mm.
those had to be figured out. In terms of character design, also, as animators, for us to design characters, we need to have like a small background story of what the character is about.
Mm.
So I had two characters in my story: a grandmother and a young kid. So did a lot of sketches in terms of figuring out what the character will finally look like.
Mm.
Uh, Also made like small models, to see how it can come up in like 3D, a traditional 3D using clay.
Yep.
So, yeah, all that work was done. Stop motion specifically has, since it's a very material based medium of animation, so all the characters which you design has to be then translated into puppets, right? For
Mm.
if it's like a puppet animation. So, to make the puppets, also one has to like figure out how will the puppets you know uh, how can one animate those puppets. So the
Mm.
armature has to be designed. So if you see in this picture, the armatures of the puppets are there, where I've used high density thermocol and wires to make the skeleton. And then after you make the skeleton, you use clay and you use other materials like foam and things like that to flesh it out. Like I mentioned earlier, that NID is a very resourceful place where you can actually utilize different labs and different studios for your things. So I then went to the dyeing lab which we had in NID. I really worked
Mm.
with the kakas and the staff there. The materials, the small pieces of fabric which you see on the right hand side, I had sourced them from the textile studio. I told you about the carton box where all those discarded textile stuff was there, and then I picked those. I had like took them to the dyeing lab. I took their help to dye them in as per my color palette,
Mm.
and that's how I made the costumes for the puppet also. Um, so this is how it was designed. It was also a
Nice.
very fun process to just collaborate with like different people in an ID
Mm.
with different resource and talent. So it was quite fun. And then once that was done, the puppets were made. Now stop motion, when you're working with puppets, sometimes there could be like those risky situations where your puppet might break, right? Because it's ultimately it's
Mm.
like made out of like aluminum wires and things like that. So to avoid any kind of those scenarios, I had made like three very identical puppets of the same, and I
Mm.
had used all three of them in my film. And while I was doing that, I had to make sure that all those three had to look exactly same. Otherwise, if I'm using those three in different shots of the film, it may look different, right? So I
Mm.
was working on those three puppets simultaneously. for my film. So then, apart from your puppets, you also have a lot of props which the characters will be using in the film. So small props had to be designed. uh,
Mm.
and then in my film, particularly, there was this auto rickshaw which I had to design,
Mm.
and it was also like one of the most fun parts of the film to design this auto rickshaw. I was really like finding it very challenging that how do I get that proportions right, because I had made stuff in the past, but I had not made like something which has to look so accurate. So then
Mm.
I took help of my friend from product design, Tanisha, who was really good with like proportions and stuff. So the diagram which you see here, the scale and everything, she
Mm.
helped me with it, and she actually helped me making this basic structure. And then on top of it, I had kind of fleshed it out. So uh, that's how it kind of went in terms of making those props. And then after puppet and props, then comes the one of the most important part of stop motion is what the set design. So most of my shots were pictured and visualized around a house in my film. So I had to make like a house using different materials. uh,
Mm.
uh, for example, in this case, if you see the visuals which are here are basically the making of the
Yeah.
tiles, the roof tiles, for which I had used clay. And I was trying to just get the most authentic and genuine look, so I used various different kind of materials to get that final look for my sets.
So
So
here you
these are the
went to ceramics department.
yeah, so I was like really good friends with textile and ceramics because those are the departments who work with like materials a lot, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you actually see in these visuals, whatever I was able to create, that learning actually comes from what I saw my peers doing in these departments. So
Mm.
yeah, it was definitely like peer-to-peer learning, and getting inspired and help from a lot of people around to be finally able to do this, achieve that skill to be able to do this.
Mm.
So yeah, and like I told you that, right, that it's a very collaborative, very open space. So while I
Yeah.
was doing this, I had my like friends coming in and sometimes helping or giving tips, how you can improve these things much further. So all that really helped. So the final set design something like looked like this. And then comes the production part where you have to set like, all your lights and, your set, and
Mm.
before you start animating. But before you actually go on to produce it, you also have to figure out how the lighting will be.
Mm.
So if you here, I was trying to just, experiment with different kind of lightings. There were two day scenes in my story, which was one was like daytime with like very sunny and clear weather, and one was like night sunset time. So I had to
Mm.
like get both these feels, both the look in my film. So I was trying different kinds of lighting to get to achieve that.
Mm. Okay.
uh, so after you had actually done your production and stop motion, once you have animated and your production is done, then comes the post production where you have to edit those shots, composite it in After Effects, stitch it together and things like that. A lot of
Mm.
things which are actually not possible in stop motion, for example, like getting those clouds in the background, those could be done by using a green screen, and later on fixing those by putting like digital assets and digital work. So that was done in compositing in post production. I also kind of worked on designing the title of the film, like how differently the title design could
Mm.
be done. So some explorations were made on that. Coming to sound design, again, like we have film and video communication in NID, and a lot of people in that department work with like sound. They work with like shooting live footages. So Bhaskar, my friend, who was very much interested in sound, and he used to pursue a lot of sound design as a student, I took his help, and he helped me compose a music track for the film itself. So he was kind enough to work along with me and do the music for my film, for my first film.
Mm.
So yeah, this is how the final visuals and the final set with the characters and things look like. This was my first stop motion film. Uh, I also must say that I've been always very inspired with studios like Ardaman Studios, all the stop motion which Pixar keeps doing. So a lot of inspiration. Also, like just to mention the work which Vaibhav Kumaresh and Suresh Eriyath from Exorus, right? They keep doing. So
Hmm.
all that used to inspire me back then a lot. They are like my mentors. So I
Yeah.
also kind of looked through the work which they have done, and how they were able to achieve that. I went through a lot of case studies in terms of set design, in terms of making those puppets for stop motion. So
Hmm.
that helped me to basically, just pull off my first stop motion short film in NID.
Okay. So it's not very easy to make animation film. वो लगता है हमें, but it is like day in and day out people just like keep working on that. And if it's like any kind of animation, basically any medium, but this medium like takes a toll kind of thing, because you have to manage so many things. And the presentation that others has shown us, it shows like you have to design the characters, design the backgrounds, then do the pre-production, production, and post-production work. And because you are a student, it's like even though people are there, you have to carry your own bags, and you have to make that film. So good job.
Right. Thank you so much, and very, very rightly said. I remember that one biggest learning and one biggest takeaways from my faculties, my animation faculties back in NID was that to be an animator, no matter what medium of animation you're pursuing, the key is to have patience because animation requires patience, whether it's
Yeah.
stop motion or 2D animation or 3D animation. Uh, the thing with animation is that the output is in seconds after you have like put a lot of effort. So it definitely requires patience, but yeah, I mean, it's the passion which keeps the animators driving. So yeah, it takes time. It's very, very tedious and a very long process, but the final outcome is like very satisfying, and it's very wholesome.
So you knew that animation had this much of hard work always. And how did you feel animation, the first thing that you done in animation? What was your thoughts about animation?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of knowing, the amount of hard work which animation has, I mean, I had an idea because before even joining an ID, like I told you that, while I was like doing my bit of research to pursue design, to pursue animation in design college, I came across, uh, you know, uh, a lot of videos in terms of behind the scenes of making animation short films and all that, which kind of told me that okay, yeah, this is a space where it's not like just a piece of cake. It requires that kind of passion, that kinds of dedication, effort, and patience to be able to make and pull off animation films. So that was there. Joining an idea and learning those techniques and working with other peers just kind of validated that. But that never scared me because again, I mean, when you have like that kind of passion and that kind of urge to learn something, I think it's a given that okay, you will have to put that effort. So the hard work and the time factor of creating animations actually never bothered me or never actually scared me that okay, never actually gave me secondary thought in terms of do I actually pursue and go ahead with discipline while I also had the option to pursue other design disciplines in NID before I had appeared for the entrance. So that was not a factor. It was very much driven by the passion and the urge to learn. So yeah, uh, I was always interested to learn animation and learn the art of telling stories and creating stories and using a medium to convey to people. That was the driving thing behind it.
So what tips would you give to aspiring animators?
Yeah, I mean, aspiring animators or like anyone who is aspiring to become a designer, not just an animator who wants to, pursue a career in design. My tip would be like, again, to follow your passion, to do something which you actually like to do. Once you join a design college, and you have that passion in you, you will love that space. You will be able to put your best, because you will be in a space, you will be amongst people uh, you were meant to be. So now also a lot of people reach out to me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and other social media platforms, in terms of especially the design aspirants who are appearing for an ID and other design entrance exams, right? That can you tell us, how to crack an examination, how to crack these design entrance examinations? And my answer to them always is that there's no one formula. Just be yourself. Just practice something which you like. If you like sketching, do that. If you like painting, if you like working on your ideas, do that. And just portray yourself the way you are, with uh, that urge of learning new things. There has to be a very strong reason for you to enter into design field. Maybe not definitely for the tag, not for other things. It's his has to be totally driven by your passion, and that your thirst of learning it. So that is something which actually, not just an idea, I'm sure all the design colleges, when they interview these aspirants, they look for that spark and that learning urge in them. And I think that's the key to kind of approach this. So yeah, that's what I followed, and it worked for me. I'm sure it works for other people also. I cannot recommend a book or a very particular formula. I'm sure even you or any other designer who have graduated from design colleges like IDC and ID and other
Unless we write
colleges.
our own books.
Yeah, you have to write your own book, and,
No, no. If we write our own book, then we'll recommend
sure.
that. So, okay. So, we'll just scroll through your Instagram.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So I'll just share my screen.
It's been some time I've posted something on Instagram. Sometimes I'm like really active. Sometimes I take my time to
Yeah.
post it.
No, I also went like really, really down, like scroll down
Yeah,
to find these things.
yeah.
So,
So there are phases for me. So at some point, if I'm like totally into like creating craft, then my Instagram will be like fully loaded with like all this stuff. Sometimes if I'm traveling, then my Instagram wall will be like just full with like travel posts.
so I came across this.
Yeah.
So, why, like, are they meant for some animation that you have made
No,
or
these
you just
were
made
not
them?
meant for animation. These were, just some clay figurine explorations which I was doing. So I have been working full time as a motion graphic designer since 2017, ever since I graduated from NID. So even though I've been working full time, I always take out some time outside work. I try to at least to do these kind of things on weekends, or after my work. So these are just one of those explorations where I was using
Mhm.
sculpting clay to make some fun things. Yeah.
This is also cool.
Yeah, this is
This
one of my
one,
actually favorite ones. This I had this, this. I think you get this tins in Indigo, like the cashew nut tins, and I wanted to just use it for something. So
okay.
I was using paper mache clay, and I made this octopus on top of it. And then I also wanted to give it a very cosmic color palette feel. So yeah, I went for a color palette like this. This is, to be honest, one of my own very favorite small sculptures which I have made using paper clay.
Very nice. Instagram के colors use हो गए ऐसे मतलब.
This is very up like Instagram का brand color.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was another thing which I had made using clay. This was like just to store something. So I come from Chhattisgarh, so I have a lot of
Hmm.
influence in terms of the tribal art with which is there in Chhattisgarh, the dhokra art and the other forms of tribal art which the locals there use and make using clay, make using wrought iron. So those small black structures which you see on the side, those are actually
Hmm.
wrought iron craft from Chhattisgarh, from my
Yeah.
hometown. And then yeah, I just wanted to give this particular piece a very tribal touch. So yeah.
And one more thing that we can share, that Adarsh is a very good cook.
Yeah, I I enjoy cooking. I'm not sure if I'm a very good cook, but I like cooking and I like hosting people.
हम
So
तो ऐसे फोटो देख के वेरी गुड बोल सकते हैं, आगे फिर पता चलेगा एक्चुअली.
अरे आप बैंगलोर आओ तो हाँ डेफिनेटली
तो पुणे
होस्ट
में
यू.
नहीं मिले तो बैंगलोर
अरे
में
या
अभी मिलने के लिए आएंगे.
मैं अगर पुणे आया तो फिर आप जब भी बैंगलोर आओगे तो फिर विल डेफिनेटली मीट. आई
ओके,
डेफिनेटली.
दिस वाज कूल, वेरी नाइस.
Yeah, this was a bit of motion graphic design I was like exploring. So I did like a small self-initiated project of exploring how differently, how creatively loaders can be. So
हम्म.
uh, when when I was exploring motion design for UX, so I was trying to see that when you see different digital platforms, right, on web or on applications, how beautifully motion design can actually fill in those gaps for the
या.
user. Let's say where the user has to wait, or something is being processed in the background.
हम्म.
How amazing or how creatively you can do that. Instead of just providing
हम्म.
like a very simple loader, we can have a very creative approach. So this was just a very self-initiated project where I was trying different forms of loader animations.
या. Is this from your workshop?
Yeah, this was from a workshop I had done with Z in Mumbai. There was an event which was organized by ZTV in collaboration with indiefolio.com.
हम्म.
And they had called me to take a small workshop for school kids and introduce them to the world of animation and to the world of like creating things like, with clay
हम्म.
and with other materials. So I did a small workshop with them there. You can
ये.
actually also scroll through some of my 36 days of type work. Uh, I did using, so one project I had done was using paper cuts. I think it will be uh,
Yeah, this one.
these ones, yeah.
Yeah, these are good.
Yeah, so these were just some explorations for 36 days of type. Uh, I, like I said, materials, are like really fun for me to work with. So for
हम्म.
this, I was particularly working with like papers and, trying like different kind of paper cutting to make this art pieces. So I couldn't like finish the entire series. I couldn't do the numbers, but I did like from A to Z, and it was quite fun.
Yeah.
Each of the alphabets had a theme. For example, the R stood for rocket,
हम्म.
the O stood for octopus, and things like that.
Nice.
This was mangoes and monkey.
And this one.
Yeah, this was this was one of the most exciting and fun projects I have done in my career so far. Um, this was this was for Imagine That, a DIY art and craft show, which got telecasted in the Disney TV back then. It was 2 years back. The scout team from the production house who were producing this show reached out to me that we have this show running, and there's a small segment called a super maker in every episode where they invite someone from outside to the
हम्म.
show, and that person, the super maker, along with the host of the show, who was Vishal Malhotra,
Yeah.
they then kind of do a small art and craft session for the audience. But this was
हम्म.
one of those moments where I was actually on that side of the camera where you had to act and you had to like say dialogues. So
हम्म.
very, very different experience, but it was to be honest very fun. So the episode is uploaded on YouTube. You can always like go and check it out. I'll share the link.
Okay, sure. So now that you are working in Samsung, do you have the time to go through the process and follow the process, and or is it कि दे दो अभी चाहिए डेडलाइन है.
Right. So I think as designers, we have to like really adapt to situations. So different working places, different corporates will have like their own way and structure of working. One thing which our colleges have taught us really well is that even though you will have your own design process, you will have your own way of doing things. When you work for clients, or when you work in the industry, you also have to like be always open in terms of adapting yourself to different situations, right? So that actually really helps. So as a designer, my approach has always been to kind of understand the situation, and then act on it, whether it's kind of planning the deliverable or the timeline. So that is what something which I try to do.
You have been traveling, quite frequently. I can see on your page. So,
Yeah.
has it impacted in thinking, for new stories, or do you have any mind that you want to work on something, maybe a personal project or something like that, doing a animation film?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things and ideas in my mind I would want to make short films about, or make something about to tell the story. Ultimately, it's like telling the story, whether it's animation or through some visual or through something. And coming to your point of traveling, I am a very enthusiastic trekker. I really enjoy treks, so I usually go for trekking in the Himalayas. I and it has actually helped me a lot in terms of understanding different cultures, meeting new people, listening to their stories, and this thought has developed actually when I did my first trek in 2015. Um, so and there was this some very divine kind of peace which I experienced back in the mountains. So yeah, whenever I go for trek, I come back refreshed. It reflects on my work. The the people I meet there, the kind of conversations sometimes I get to have, also just being in the nature, that pristine environment, just refreshes your mind. As designers, we also have to be like, observers. We have to observe our world around, uh, and get some inspirations from there, which ultimately reflects in our art and in our design. So that is something which I very firmly believe, that you have to be open, and be observant, and get inspirations from anywhere or everywhere, like wherever possible. So inspirations and ideas can come from the most unexpected places. For me, it comes when I travel. So yeah, I really try to travel. I really try to trek whenever time permits. I try to take out time and go for the short trips, do some trekking in the Himalayas or nearby places, and come back, and then approach my work with a refreshed mind.
Nice. So, one last question: what is your design dream?
My design dream, would be, I mean, just to keep doing what I love to do. Uh, One thing which I have always kind of followed is that, even though I pursued animation film design from NID, but when I was leaving NID, it almost felt like that place gave me a lot more than just teaching me animation. Uh, because that place is like that, because there were so many disciplines, there were so many people with different kind of skill set. So I always keep myself open to new challenges, new opportunities. So uh, uh, back in NID, I was doing a lot of stop motion. Then I moved to motion graphic design, where I was working with Cognizant in Pune with amazing team members and amazing animators in the team, and doing a lot of motion graphic video production. Then I developed interest in motion design for UX, and now I'm working at Samsung, where I'm exploring, how motion design can be used in UX, to elevate experiences for our users. So it has always been like a very go in the flow kind of journey for so far for me, and I think I would like to continue it that way. Tomorrow, if something really exciting and new thing comes up, and I'm able to grab it and pursue it, why not? So as a designer, I'm open to those things. I'm open to go with the flow. So that is one design dream, in terms of just keep exploring, keep learning, and become a very versatile, wholesome designer, rather than just keeping myself confined to a one particular line of thought. And to have just a very simple happy life, maybe grow vegetables, travel, trek. These kind of things is something which interests me, very, like uh, connected to your roots, very close to nature. So I would want to picture my future and my life ahead that way. That is my the design dream.
So sow seeds, go on a trek, come back,
Yeah,
जो भी
that's
उग गया है उसको तोड़ो और खाओ, थोड़ा डिजाइन करो.
exactly, that sounds like perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, others, thank you so much for taking time out and having this conversation. So really inspired by the work. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Vishal. And also, I would like to actually appreciate your initiative like this, where you are getting designers and on board, because I have been in these shoes back, when I was prepping for my design entrance exam, and I know the mindset, when you are really passionate about doing something, but you don't know how to do it. You want to find your way, and then you reach out to people, seeking those answers for those questions. So the videos and the all the content which you are able to get from people who are working in the industry, people who have gone through the journey, will be like really really helpful for all the design aspirants. So I think kudos to that initiative. I really wish a lot of success for your YouTube channel, and I'm sure a lot of designers from our circle, from your circle, will come on board for this initiative, and they'll share their experiences. I hope whatever I share today will help whoever is looking, whoever is watching this video, whoever
Yeah.
is in that phase where they're trying to figure things out. So I'm sure the messaging reaches to the right audience in the right way.
Yes, it will. It will. So on that note, we'll say thank you to others again, and chalo. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Vishal. Thank you.
Chalo. See you in the next week. Bye.